All right. Welcome back. We're here now with Peter Ohtaki, who is running for state assembly. Welcome, Peter. Thank you for being here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your candidacy and also where you're running at, where your district is?
I'd be happy to. And thank you, Roger, for organizing and hosting this candidate forum today. And thanks to everyone who's attending on this Saturday afternoon to find out more about what's going on in the state of California. I'm Peter Ohtaki. I'm running for Assembly District 24, which is the northern half of Santa Clara County and the lower portion of San Mateo County, commonly known as Silicon Valley. I grew up in this district and I'm raising my family here. I know this district well. I attended local public schools and earned a Stanford MBA. From serving as Menlo Park's mayor and on city council for 8 years, I understand the role of state government. I'm uniquely qualified to manage our way out of this COVID mess. I recovered from it. I'm an emergency manager and helped keep 250,000 employees safe. We must do better to enable our small businesses to survive, or else job losses will be permanent. As a parent of 3 teenagers, we need to get our kids back into school, and we can do that safely to protect teachers. We need to fix the state's budget that went from a $20 billion surplus to a $54 billion deficit. I balanced our city budget every year, paid down an unfunded pension liability at the same time. I was previously a tech startup CFO and know how to tighten our belts to ensure survival. One example, the state spends $2 billion a year on high-speed rail, continues to spend $2 billion a year, yet makes us raise our sales taxes to fund Caltrain, and that's on the ballot as Measure RR. The key reason why I'm running for state assembly is to restore opportunity, freedom, and innovation to Silicon Valley and the Golden State. Sacramento's legislative supermajority has launched an all-out assault on business, on our opportunity to make a living. AB 5 targeted app-ride companies to force drivers as full-time employees rather than independent contractors. And as you know, Prop 22 is on the ballot to fix that. But musicians, part-time engineers, and other gig economy workers have been caught in the crossfire, and they're not getting any relief on this. They're losing their jobs. Prop 15 split roll will raise property taxes on commercial real estate that will raise rents on small businesses just as they are being decimated by inconsistent watch list, purple, red, reopening, closing state orders. Prop 16 penalizes Asian kids like mine who work hard and get good grades from being admitted to UC schools simply because of their last name. Sacramento's legislative supermajority has imposed unfunded state mandates that override our freedom of local control, that change the character of our communities and result in crowded classrooms for our kids. SB 5 and bills like that would impose high-density housing and override our local zoning. 58,000 new apartments have been built since 2010 in Silicon Valley. This housing has generated more students for our school districts that are already at maximum enrollment, but yet there's no state funding for more classrooms and teachers. That's the unfunded aspect of these mandates. This new RHNA round, and RHNA stands for the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, another state mandate program, will require 5 cities in our district to build 40,000 more units between 2023 and 2030. We need a post-COVID reality check on this program and this mandate because people are moving out of the Bay Area. Tech is allowing most employees to work from home, and most employees don't want to live near work. So increasingly, they're moving out of Silicon Valley. Finally, instead of embracing innovation, the Sacramento legislative supermajority wants to either tax or regulate tech. As I mentioned, AB5 targeted the gig economy. The Employment Development Department has a 1 million backlog of unprocessed unemployment claims, some of those fraudulent. If I recall, PayPal was pretty good at being able, with their technology, to detect and process efficiently payments. And I think that's an example of where embracing innovation, embracing technology can fix some of our problems. And finally, more and more, they call for censoring social media, particularly on those who don't agree with their agenda. So in summary, I'd like to ask you to stand with me to help our small businesses survive COVID closures, or else job losses will be permanent. Stand with me to get our kids back into school safely. Stand with me to preserve local control over the character of our communities and against unfunded state mandates that result in overcrowded classrooms. Stand with me on moving $2 billion of cap and trade funding from high-speed rail to mass transit like Caltrain, Dumbarton Rail, and grade separation. Stand with me to restore the Golden State as the place of opportunity, freedom, and innovation. I'd like to encourage you to come to my website, which is www.peterohtaki.com, and that's Peter, OHTAKI.com. So appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Roger, back to you.
Thanks, Peter. I wonder if you could take a couple questions. We've had some come in while you were talking. And there seem to be a couple of, first of all, somebody thanks you for the positive message.
Good.
So a couple questions around how to manage COVID in this state. You know, as you know, California has these massive lockdowns, you know, and the sheltering in place, and it's had quite a huge effect on the state. If you get elected, what would be your position on this?
Yeah, so thank you. So early on, some of the, back in March, some of the early closures, I think were warranted because we just didn't know that much about COVID. We didn't have the treatments. We didn't have the PPE or the preventive measures to keep spreading. So I do think those initial closures were warranted. The problem that we have now is the reopening has been inconsistent stop-start. If you recall, you know, the state had, as Governor Newsom had, counties on a watch list. And depending on where you were on the watch list, like San Mateo and Santa Clara County, that impacted whether or not you as a business could open your restaurant or how you would do that. And then we went to this purple, red, orange system. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think at this point, we need to approach it from the standpoint of if you've got a restaurant or if you have a small business, you are allowed to open inside and outside, but you have to have social distancing measures. You have to have certain, whether it's plexiglass and everyone's got to wear a mask, and that's understood. But trying to do this stop-start, depending on whether your county's on, you know, as many of us in this district know, Santa Clara was on one watch, was I think on red, while we were on purple in San Mateo County, and that meant there was inconsistency on whether you could get a haircut in Menlo Park versus Palo Alto, right? I mean, that's the type of thing that at this point, we know enough about COVID. We know enough about how to prevent spread that I think we can allow that opening to take place. And that was the same with schools. I mean, schools, we really do need to reopen because kids are not learning effectively through distance learning. Some are, but many are harmed. And that's really, especially the ones who need the most help. And so we need to get kids back into school. Overwhelmingly, 80% of parents want kids back into school on the peninsula. Various school districts have done these surveys. But the concern is, understandably so, teachers are nervous about that. Well, we can address that. We can do the stable cohorts, the hybrid systems of 1 week on, 1 week off, and rotating the class. We can put plexiglass in front of the teachers' desks. We can provide teachers N95 masks and more better PPE, and of course have the students wear cloth masks. And then finally, we need to have the parents, and we can do this through apps, to attest every morning that their kid hasn't displayed any issues or symptoms and is healthy to attend school. So we can do that. And in fact, the California Department of Public Health director recently said that in the counties that have allowed schools to reopen, they haven't seen any spreading of COVID. And he just mentioned that this week. So it's current information. So I think we can effectively reopen schools now. And that's the type of approach we should take with COVID.
Yeah, I should probably mention, you stated at the start of your talk that you actually had COVID. You were a COVID survivor. Yep. So, and as I understand it, you actually had symptoms. So it wasn't a pleasant, 2-day missing work kind of thing for you. So you're in kind of a unique position, I think, to know just how serious this can be and what we should do about it.
That's right. I learned about it firsthand in April. I had to take 3 weeks off from work. Fortunately, I was able to stay in one room while the rest of the family was, I was quarantined from the rest of my family, and they were certainly very supportive. I had a very difficult week or two in that period, but I did not only recover from it, but I also learned a lot about it. I, followed all of the progress on Gilead's remdesivir, treatment, which finally got emergency use authorization. I followed all the studies on vaccines and how they're going to get approved and will come out next month and and they'll start production and ramp up and distribution next year. So I've stayed very much on top of what's going on with COVID. And that's also part of my job in my company, is to keep, as an emergency manager, has been to keep 250,000 employees safe. And we've implemented measures across the country to keep our employees safe, everything from PPE and masks and hand sanitizers to plexiglass to all sorts of social distancing measures, and having our employees make sure that they've gone through temperature screening and attestation. So I know firsthand that we can do this. We can reopen businesses and schools, and we can do that safely.
Okay, well, last question. If people want to reach you, how do they find your campaign?
So I'll be delighted. I'll put this, if it's okay, I'll put it in the chat, my URL, but it's www.peterohtaki.com, and that is spelled O-H-T-A-K-I. So I'll see if I can type this into the chat, but I do appreciate folks to learn more about my campaign, and certainly appreciate your support, including, of course, definitely appreciate donations. I'm running a very cost-effective and efficient social media campaign targeting non-party preference voters and also Asian voters, which constitute probably close to 50% of this district, the combination of the two. So definitely I've got a strategy here. So I very much appreciate the support. And for those of you that are in Silicon Valley, please spread the word. I've got yard signs. I'd be delighted to drop off a yard sign and just tell your friends that there is an alternative to the status quo.
All right. Thanks very much, Peter Ohtaki.